Hello. Uh, yeah, hi. I'm Padmanabhan. Wow. I'm Padmanabhan. I'll be talking about ORCA, Beyond Generative Music, and Bangalore International Center. Yeah. Okay. Okay, it's back now. Yeah. Yeah. A little while ago, I'm Padmanabhan Beatnik. I'm a sound designer, computer musician. So a little while ago, at the panel, there was a talk about music technology and how it can come into India and whatnot. That took me back like 7, 8 years ago, whatever. When I was trying to look at music technology and want to get into it, and figured out that it's not there in India and it's pretty expensive outside. And then right now I'm here, which among the people who I look up to and admire and whatnot, and I can call them friends. So it's pretty humbling and honored to be here. And what I primarily do is design sounds for, well, primarily make noise, and then design sounds for films and performances and theater performances and such. And what sound designers primarily do is they create and manipulate sounds using audio technological tools and whatnot, using synthesizers, effects, to create an immersive experience for the audience, like what um, Akash. Akash is talking about how it could be an immersive experience when you're in convolution spaces and whatnot, and you can, like even previous speakers who were there. And then to help guide a story. I personally believe that much like how visual tells the story and it's very gripping, audio kind of navigates your story, and you can navigate the audience's attention through just audio. And that kind of directs the way you want to take the story and way you want to make them feel and emote in that aspect. And yeah, so sound design, I primarily come from that. I'm not a techie, I'm not a developer in any sort. I'm probably a beta tester. um, so sound design for me is fleshing out oral world and concentrating on parts that really speak out for the narrative and build on it. um, oh, sorry. And then there was this aspect of sound design and music production for me where what's the difference? Because in music production, there's always this rag, tal, and scales and such. It's just very defined, very conventional in that sense. Whereas sound design, it's more like an aesthetic choice in that aspect. This rag and all that doesn't come into play as much. So, yeah, it was more like a listening exercise where you're trying to create a space, trying to create an emotion through just the practice of listening. And this kept me thinking of, okay, music production has all these languages and all these visual ways of depicting, okay, this way you can think of the tone, think of the scale and whatnot. How do you think of soundscapes? How do you think of natural sounds? Can you visualize it? Can you share it with your friends, with your collaborators to say, okay, this is the narrative that you're building on and these are the soundscapes that you're looking for? This was a question that came up at one point. Yes, one can. Thank you for my speech. So what came up after was this basic sound map for the sound design, which takes up the time of the narrative and the dialogue and the music and the Foley effects and how much loudness it comes in and goes. In a very basic aspect, this was there, but sound is a very spatial thing in itself. It is not a very linear narrative. You can't just increase volume and be like, hey, this tells the story, or this brings that impact. So how do you bring that spatial environment? How do you bring all those in a visual aspect in some aspect? In some sense was another question that I was looking at. And how soundscapes are being, represented musically. So this is Beethoven's symphony, where he kinds of recreates a country music or a essence of country through his music. and that is depicted through his notes and whatnot, the staff notations and musical notations, very conventional in that sense. And then I came across this work by Murray Schaffer, where he too goes around looking at soundscapes and how to visualize them in some aspect. And he represents them in a very interesting manner, where it's not always, like the staff notations still remain, the conventional tools are still used, but he's experiencing or experimenting beyond that and trying to understand if using the conventional tools and the other sounds that are there in the natural sense, in the natural space, and creating a language out of it. And then from there I went to this one, which is Brian Eno's Music for Airports. This again is another notation in some aspect for the sound or the music that he has created for this piece. This doesn't have anything close to what, am I still audible on the mic? Oh yeah. This doesn't come anything close to what Murray Schaffer or Beethoven did. That doesn't have any musical, the notations as such, which for me was very interesting in that aspect. So then my next question was, okay, we can maybe represent it in a very, experimental style and, very perceptive in that aspect, intuitive. How do you make this a performance? Like people play guitars and pianos and keyboards and whatnot to make like musical compositions as a live performative stuff. Like how do I create sound as a live performance in some aspect and, create that same immersive experience and narrate a story and, do all that. In that, I came across ORCA, I guess, well, part of it. What I understood of all of this was there was a small algorithm in some aspect for soundscapes, which was a set of patterned sequence of events with a controlled chaos or randomness. It's not always like you'll get these notes at these bars and such. There'll be some randomness involved in the natural soundscapes, which are, well, quite controlled in the aspect of, okay, this depicts the sound of this particular, environment. But there is always this surprise that comes in with this. The most closest example I could think of is bird calls and bird sounds, for that matter. So then with ORCA, I experienced like we could patch it with different tools, different softwares that can synthesize sounds and that can use samplers and whatnot. And using ORCA as a tool to control those synthesizers, those samplers to trigger sounds in real time for performances. And this kept me, had my interest going. For theater performance and such, and for dance performances, I began using ORCA as a tool. But what is ORCA essentially? Okay, what can ORCA do? In some aspect, is this. It's primarily a visual tool, visual programming language in some aspect. You don't have like compilation errors and such. It takes in MIDI data, so you can patch it with anything that takes in MIDI data for that matter, and then create soundscapes and create musical compositions on top of it. This, of course, is a very musical composition. But yeah, what is this? Oh shit. Sorry. What is this? Okay. What is ORCA? Before this, I wanted to show this to people in one. Yes. So since ORCA can take in anything as an audio engine, you can connect it with your super collider, you can connect it with pure data, MXP, Max MSP, and such. I primarily use Ableton as one of my audio engines. Switch, right? Cool. Let's see if this works. This is like a small demo to show like what ORCA can do and the syntax of it. So primarily, you guys are able to see the screen, right? Okay, clearer, I guess. So primarily, it is a sequencer, and you have these functions that these are the only functions and codes that are there in Orca, and it essentially runs the entire program runs on these alphabets and some special characters. That's it. So you don't have to learn new functions or learn new syntaxes as such. And certain things have certain specific functions. Like T, for example, is a sequence creating tool where you can create how many ever sequences that you want. And then you can have a clocks function, and then V for variable, assigning a variable and such. And then whatever value you add over here can be called back over here. So this kind of helps me quantize whatever that I'm creating in real time. And so right now I kind of made this using this logic, which kind of goes like something like this. And over here, oh, I forgot about this part, sorry. Over here, colon and whatever that I'm writing over here, this syntax is basically colon and sending MIDI signals to whatever program that you're patching into. And then the first dot, or the first thing, is the channel. So 0 is 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, how many ever channels that you have. And then the next is the octave, whatever octave that you're having. And next is the note, whichever. And then we have the volume or the velocity and the length. This pretty much makes up the entire Orca's, interface in that aspect. So it's basically you're combining and, reworking this language in a way that is flexible for you, using it as a mixing tool, using it as a tool for, live performances and such. Keeping that in mind. So this, what do you call that? This immediacy and this improvisation in some aspect kind of helps me, play around with live performances and, especially in theater and, choreographed performances, where improvisation is part of the act or becomes part of the act. This is just an example where I'm using like a very, synthesized sound, but we can go ahead and use like samples and whatnot, play around with other tools and whatnot. Right now, I don't think my laptop can handle that much heat. So yeah. So Orca, as per the website, is just like a two-dimensional esoteric programming language. It doesn't have a synthesizer in itself, but it can, patch in with Ableton, Renoise, whatever. VCV also. Essentially a MIDI, anything that can take in MIDI, OSC, and UDP. Even if you have a hardware that can take in MIDI signals, you can patch it to Orca and perform through it. Some of the performances that I've used in the past is this small theater performance, experimental theater performance called Agents of Malarkey, for which we had like multiple projections going on, and I used Orca as a live mixing and performing tool. Another one is the story of Gargalian, for which I've used the sounds of the earth, like sounds of nature and whatnot, as the evolution of a planet, and that narrative was being built on through live coding synthesis. Yeah, this is pretty much it. Any questions? Thank you. No. Hello.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch of live coding systems. Why Orca?
Amazing question. Next question. I mean, you can use other tools for the same. For me, I found Orca very simple and interesting because, well, again, I'm not a coder or a techie in that aspect. For me, the compilation error becomes the hindrance in even learning a new programming language for that matter. In this program, you can pretty much code whatever, and it will either take it if it is right, or it will just let it pass. In that aspect, Orca is like kind of flexible. So yeah, that's why Orca.
No errors.
Huh?
No errors.
Yeah, no errors. Whatever error is very sonical, so you'll probably go tone deaf at some point. That's a different error altogether.
Oh, one more thing about the
Yeah.
error, right? So have you experienced anything like MIDIs being skipped? I mean, either or delayed, like because these are two different softwares, right?
Yeah.
So, like, and how do you, especially being a musician, how do you perceive that, right?
Yeah, I call myself computer musician for that exact point. I'm like, that's part of the improvisation. Let it be. Let the computer also, glitch and perform.
Right,
So,
good.
yeah. Hey. Okay. Oh.
Hi, thank you, man. That was cool. I
Thanks.
have one question. Does Orca allow you to not follow time?
It goes by frame rates, frame per second, so it has some BPM and some
Okay,
level.
so it's
it
always
doesn't-
locked
it
in
doesn't have-
BPM,
yeah,
always. Okay, cool.
it
Thank you.
doesn't have like timeless mode.
Nothing in between? Do you
Sorry?
think? Or does it only do notes and nothing in between, or
That
something?
is, yeah. So I've thought about it. I've tried around with it. So I personally find instead of playing with Orca for it, I play with the synthesizer instead.
Okay.
If you detune the synthesizer, then it becomes detuned, right? Please don't.
He says it does OSC, so it can, in theory, play any pitch, basically.
Yeah, no, or any gesture.
Any gesture. Okay,
Ah,
cool.
serious.
Cheers.
Fine. Cooper see everyone. Okay, thanks. That's it.
Can you play a 10-minute live concert on ORCA?
Yes. That was the first question.
Do we have 10 minutes?
I don't think
Prashant?
we have time. Do we have time?
4 minutes?
Live coding from scratch. Let's see. It'll be noise. I'll be just playing this then. From scratch. Let's see. What? No. No. Let's see what happens. Errors. Let that go on for a while. What are the ones that I'm using, by the way?